What happens when a franchise just refuses to die? When there's too much money to be made to simply call it a day and move on? What happens when a franchise about street racing continues to up the ante for 20 years and 9 movies? Well, we get this.
I don't want to die!
What happens when a franchise about a brotherhood of assassins during the Third Crusade continues to pump out a game a year for 13 years? Well, this. And finally, what happens when a franchise that started as a World War II shooter releases at least one game per year for the better part of 2 decades? We get Advanced Warfare. Okay, that might sound a little dramatic, but this is a Call of Duty that lives in infamy. After the Modern Warfare series had wrapped up and Ghosts didn't really work out the way they wanted it to, it was time for the Call of Duty series to take a leap of faith, and that's what they did. When Advanced Warfare came out, I think it's safe to say that some serious franchise fatigue was setting in. COD desperately needed to shake up the game in a big way, just like Fast and Furious going to space or Assassin's Creed turning to Norse mythology. You can only do the same thing so many times in a row before you're forced to try something new. Of course, there is a second secret option that not a lot of people in the entertainment industry actually know about that's called letting a franchise die with dignity. But this is Activision we're talking about here, so I'm sure that was never really on the table. Advanced Warfare is easily the biggest risk that Call of Duty has ever taken. If you were to measure the difference between any 2 CODs that came out back to back, I don't think you'd find a bigger difference than the one between Ghosts and Advanced Warfare. I mean, it's just night and day. This COD turned the traditional movement system on its head by adding thruster packs. It was the first COD to feature randomized loot boxes, and it was the first COD to be developed primarily by Sledgehammer Games. And with all these changes, as you'd probably guess, came a fair amount of controversy. If you took a random Call of Duty player and asked them what their thoughts on Advanced Warfare are, they would probably throw up in their mouth right before telling you it's the worst Call of Duty ever. And for years, that's been the status quo within the Call of Duty community. Even the players who weren't even playing COD at the time of Advanced Warfare have been taught by all of the older players to hate this game. Well, today, I'm putting an end to all of it. Advanced Warfare is the most underrated Call of Duty of all time. I know that's probably hard for a lot of you guys out there to hear, so just take a second, let that sink in. You can leave a strongly worded comment or hit dislike if you want. Just take all the time that you need, because I'm about to show you why Advanced Warfare isn't all that bad. Bear in mind, I'm not trying to say that this is one of the best CODs ever made. That's a completely different discussion. What I am saying is that the ratio of hate that this game gets to the quality of its gameplay is completely out of whack. And my goal with this video is to hopefully make things right. As of making this, Advanced Warfare is 7 years old, but justice is a dish best served cold. In 2014, Call of Duty was in an awkward place. Previously, it was the undisputed king of tactical first-person shooters, and COD had proved that time and time again. Modern Warfare 2 was a massive hit, and so was Black Ops after that, and so was Modern Warfare 3 after that, and so was Black Ops 2 after that. But it's important to remember that this hot streak started with the original Modern Warfare, which was Call of Duty 4. Before then, COD had only made games set in World War II, and it didn't have many of the gameplay features that are now considered staples of Call of Duty, like kill streaks, create a class, perks, etc. In other words, the massive success of the Modern Warfare and Black Ops series started with a leap of faith when they took the franchise from World War II to present day. And since it was time for another leap, and it worked out so well last time, why not take the franchise into the future again, except this time go even further? And thus was born Advanced Warfare, complete with thruster packs, laser beams, invisibility cloaks, all your basic future stuff. I know that a lot of you are probably not too familiar with this game. Like I talked about in my Modern Warfare 2019 deep dive, that game brought a new generation of players to Call of Duty, and if that's you, then you probably don't know too much about Advanced Warfare. So in this video, I want to break the game down. For legacy players, hopefully it'll be able to give them a different perspective on Advanced Warfare, and for the Renaissance players, it'll hopefully give them a good idea of what this game was actually about, so that they can form their own opinion about it. But before we go on any further, we need to address the elephant in the room: advanced movement. Although Black Ops 2 had already explored a slightly futuristic setting for Call of Duty, it didn't feature any significant changes to the movement mechanics, making Advanced Warfare the first COD to let you fly through the air like Iron Man.
Consider this. I'd get to fly around like Iron Man.
Now, advanced movement, that's a pretty broad term, especially since there are a lot of games with advanced movement nowadays. But what it meant for Call of Duty was a thruster pack that would let the player double jump, air strafe, slide boost, and dodge. And just those movements alone absolutely shatter the foundation of Call of Duty gameplay, which is why advanced movement is kind of a taboo phrase within the community. When you add something like this into the game, it changes its DNA. It's not really Call of Duty at that point, it's something new that creates a completely different multiplayer experience. And we're gonna dive into that in due time, but that's not all I want to talk about here. Most of you guys know that my main interest in Call of Duty is the multiplayer, but that being said, I also love zombies, and I play the campaign every year. Well, every year that they have one, anyway. And like I said in my Call of Duty tier list, I tend to rank Call of Duties based 80% on the multiplayer alone, and the other 20 based on whatever else the game has to offer. So when I say that this is the most underrated Call of Duty of all time, I'm not just talking about the multiplayer. The campaign in Advanced Warfare was a really good time, but if I'm being completely honest, I've never played a Call of Duty campaign that I didn't at least like. I know there's usually not a lot of substance in the stories, and the gameplay is almost always extremely linear, but to me, they've always felt like straightforward, interactive action movies, and I don't think that's a bad thing. They know what they are, they don't overstay their welcome, and they make sure that the experience is action-packed. So Call of Duty usually delivers a solid campaign, and that's what they did with Advanced Warfare. All the futuristic tech made for some pretty interesting missions. They got Kevin Spacey to play the villain, which, regardless of his current situation, was a pretty big deal for Call of Duty at the time, and showed that they were committed to providing a compelling story. They even added a skill tree system to slowly upgrade your character as the story goes on, which I think was a really cool addition that should definitely return sometime in the future. Sledgehammer really nailed it with this campaign, and it's one of the most unique ones we've ever gotten. Sure, it was pretty predictable, but still, it was able to explore the futuristic setting in a fun way and give us those classic action movie moments. And as far as zombies goes, a lot of people seem to forget that this game didn't actually launch with a zombies mode. That didn't come until DLC 1. But that's okay, because the game already had its own survival mode, just like the one from Modern Warfare 3. Where you take on endless waves of enemies, but instead of zombies, they are AIs with weapons and everything. And I mean, this is just like the one from Modern Warfare 3. I'm pretty sure they stole a lot of the assets from Infinity Ward for this one. But the Advanced Warfare Survival Mode has the added layers of upgrading your exosuit and these wild little mini tasks that you have to do every couple rounds. You'll probably get bored of this mode pretty quickly, but it's still good for a couple nights of fun with the squad. And the actual Zombies mode gave us our very first non-Treyarch Call of Duty Zombies experience. And when you take everything into account, again, I think Sledgehammer did a pretty good job with it. They added advanced movement to their version of zombies, which I fundamentally disagree with, but still, it can be fun to mess around with, and you don't actually start out with your exosuit, so I guess it's kinda balanced. It's really cool to see what Call of Duty Zombies looks like in a futuristic setting. They also doubled down on the story aspect of zombies by providing a fleshed out narrative with cutscenes and all, and some pretty awesome actors who played the main characters. That might seem standard for zombies nowadays, but this was definitely pushing the label for zombie storytelling in COD at the time. If I'm being honest, this is far from my favorite iteration of zombies, but still, it's a well-crafted experience. I think if you were someone who had never played Treyarch Zombies and then you hopped on to play this, you would probably have a really good time. Between this and the other survival mode, I think it's safe to say that Sledgehammer gave us a good amount of extra modes to play when you need a break from the sweatiness of multiplayer. Speaking of multiplayer, I know that's what you all came here to see, so let's get into it. Like I've already mentioned a few times, the multiplayer from Advanced Warfare is one of the most controversial in this series, mainly because of the advanced movement. And to tell you the truth, back in 2014, I wasn't a huge fan of it either. But as I've revisited this game in order to make this video, I've realized something so wild. This multiplayer is fun, and that's probably because my taste in games has changed a lot over the years, and I don't think I'm alone in that regard. I just feel like in general this multiplayer has aged well, and that if more people gave it a chance today in 2021, they might end up enjoying themselves just like I did. The ability to double jump and boost across the map at insane speeds not only gives you plenty of opportunities to outplay your enemies, but it cranks the pace of the game up to 11. You're always on the move, you always have a plethora of movement options, and it's all happening so fast, it feels like you never even have a moment to catch your breath. And I think that actually sums up a lot of what I like about this multiplayer and advanced movement in general. Pacing and movement options. When you have the ability to move exactly how you want, it lets you express your playstyle much more effectively. It also adds a lot of spice to every gunfight you get into as well. There are just so many variables to consider. How are you going to move? How are they going to move? The possibilities are 10 times greater than that of a normal COD. Couple that with the increased pace of gameplay and there's just never a dull moment. But I do want to point out why I prefer the advanced warfare movements over the movement from the other futuristic CODs, being Black Ops 3 and Infinite Warfare. In this game, you don't have a jetpack. In other words, you can't sustain your flight by holding down the jump button. What you have in Advanced Warfare is more of a thruster pack. Instead of hovering in the air, you'll get a short directional boost. And this is one of the reasons why I think AW is the best advanced movement COD. To me, it's really important that the player has to spend most of their time on the ground and think about how they want to use their thruster pack. Now, Advanced Warfare still isn't perfect at this, but it's definitely better at it than Black Ops 3, where you can easily play the floor is lava for an entire game of team deathmatch. If you can't tell at this point, I'm a bit of a movement nerd. I'm really intrigued by the design and the balance of it all, and I think it leads to some really wacky and creative gameplay. But if you don't want to hear me ramble on about Advanced Warfare's movement and what I liked and didn't like, you can go ahead and skip to this timestamp. I won't be offended, I promise. While the movement is a lot of fun, it's not perfect. I love those moments where you really feel like a super soldier from the future, but I think in general, all of the movement across the board just needed to be toned down a little bit. For example, I'd say that they really needed to nerf the battery power of your exosuit. Here's what I mean. You can slide, jump, double jump, and then air strafe, all without losing power in your suit. Yes, this maneuver is fun, but it's just too much, and leads to players spamming exo movements. This is the type of thing that I think drove some players away from advanced movement. Simply making it so that you couldn't do more than 2 advanced movements in quick succession would have gone a long way. Or maybe just rebalance the system entirely. I think the most costly movements should be the double jumps, since those are the most annoying thing to fight against. So what if using a double jump would cost you all of your battery power, and you'd have to wait, 5 seconds before using any advanced movements after that? On the other hand, maybe a slide would cost 25% of your battery and a dodge would cost 50%. This would tone down the sheer quantity of advanced movements you'd see in the game and also allow the player to more skillfully plan out their movement. Another thing that really needed to be toned down was the height of the double jump. I know they were trying to achieve high-flying, wild gameplay, and like I said, I like that philosophy, but there is a line. This is the type of thing that leads to that frustrating moment of getting shot and killed by someone flying through the air directly above you. I think this double jump height could have been cut in half. This keeps the movement potential in the game, but also brings players back down to earth a little bit. And while we're on the topic of double jumping, players should not be able to ADS after having used their double jump. Now that I'm really thinking about it and putting the time into this video, the double jump alone is probably what made a lot of people hate this game. With the way that it is, you have players constantly spamming double jump, flying 50 feet through the air, and just laser beaming you with pinpoint accuracy. So to sum up my changes to the double jump mechanic, it needs to cost a lot of battery power from your exosuit, it needs to take you half as high, and you need to lose the ability to ADS after using it. Unless they wanted to add a perk or a special exosuit that would allow you to do that. All of this would help make the double jump more of a repositioning tool and less of a way to get cheesy kills by literally just jumping straight into the air. And one last thing while we're on the topic of movement. I do think that there's some wasted potential here in terms of exosuit customization. And I'm not talking about cosmetic, because we did get plenty of that. I'm talking about the utility of it. For example, there's a perk in the game that allows you to stay off the radar when using exo movements, because otherwise you show up as a little blip like this. I love the idea that exo movements cause you to show up on the radar, and that there's a perk that allows you to prevent that. I just wish they would have fleshed out these movement perks a little bit more. Imagine if there had been an additional 3 slots to your creative class that were purely dedicated to making your exosuit fit your playstyle. So maybe a perk that lets you ADS in the air after you've double jumped, a perk that lets you stay off the radar while using your suit, a perk that gives your exosuit more battery power, a perk that makes your advanced movements faster or quieter or take you further, the list goes on. There's just so many fun things they could play with here. So to wrap up my thoughts on Advanced Warfare's movement, it's not surprising that Sledgehammer didn't come up with the perfect movement system on their very very first try, but I think they did a pretty good job with it. It is sad that they'll probably never get the chance to refine it, since Advanced Warfare 2 is probably never going to happen. Even though overall I feel like this movement was so fun and unique, and they probably learned a lot of valuable lessons from this game and would definitely be able to improve it if they had another try. But of course, most of us probably remember the amount of hate that this game used to get back in the day, and even today as well. Advanced Movement changes the core gameplay so much that it's hard to even call it COD. I mean, it looks like COD, the guns, the map design, the time to kill all feel like COD, but at a basic level, the game no longer plays like Call of Duty. So for anyone out there who loves Call of Duty but hates the Advanced Movement Call of Duties, I can totally understand that, because they're apples and oranges. Personally, I think that advanced movement shooters are a lot of fun, and I bet you could probably tell from the gameplay that I've been showing you that I was having a blast playing Advanced Warfare over the past couple weeks. But I'm not saying that Call of Duty should make a permanent switch to advanced movement, because again, for the 100th time, advanced movement COD isn't really COD. I just think that once every 3 or 4 years, it would be awesome to see Activision take a gamble and release a game that does use some type of advanced movement. I mean, there are a million different ways to do it. Not only would that be fun, but it would help fight off franchise fatigue. Right now, for example, we've had 4 boots on the ground Call of Duties in a row and are probably going to get our 5th by the end of this year. Yes, Call of Duty changes a little from year to year, but at its core, it's the same experience. Every once in a while, I think an advanced movement game would be really healthy for the franchise. Alright, so that's enough about the movement. Let's move on to the other elements of Advanced Warfare's multiplayer experience. The weapons here were a lot of fun. You have your basic roster of guns that you'd expect to see in COD, but there are a handful of energy-based weapons that are something that we'd never seen in COD before. Some of them never have to reload, you just have to make sure you don't overheat it, like the plasma rifle from Halo or the L-Star from Apex Legends. And some work the same as normal weapons do, they just look and sound cooler. The TAC-19, for example, I had a lot of fun playing with. It acts basically just like a normal pump-action shotgun, but looks and sounds like a thunder gun from Zombies. There's also this LMG-like weapon that shoots a massive red laser beam that I had a lot of fun with too. In large part, these are just aesthetic changes, but still, it was cool to see. This is the type of thing I'm talking about when I'm saying that this was such a unique COD. The maps in Advanced Warfare are also something that I think Sledgehammer did a really good job with. Since the new movement allows players to jump higher and further than ever before, it required a completely new type of map design. And if you take one look at an Advanced Warfare map, you can tell that it was made with that movement in mind. There are tons of high places that are the perfect height to jump onto, and you'll notice that there are a lot of insanely tall walls to give you an easy indication that you won't be able to jump up there. And that's actually something that I think was really important for Sledgehammer when making these maps. Now that the player has all of this movement potential, you need to make sure that it's very clear where the player can and can't go. And seeing as I never really had an issue with that, I feel like they did a pretty good job. And not only was the design great, but the color palettes and settings were also great choices. Each map has a very distinct look and feel, and they're really easy on the eyes, especially when you contrast it with the many, many grays and browns of Modern Warfare. I especially love this Christmassy snow map that's set in what looks like a mall. It just makes a fantastic vibe and gives me this sense of nostalgia, even though I have no memories on this map. And this is one of the only CODs to ever feature actual evolving maps, meaning that there are some maps that will actually change mid-match. Yes, this is kinda gimmicky, but you have to admit that at the very least, it makes the maps a little more interesting to play on. The Create a Class system in Advanced Warfare was pretty basic for COD at the time. It featured the Pick 10 system, which, unpopular opinion, I do not like. If you don't know, traditionally Call of Duty has had a slot-based Create a Class system. For example, you have one slot for a primary weapon, which holds a few slots for attachments, and you have another slot for your secondary and 3 slots for your perks, and so on. For each slot, you would make a choice of what you wanted to fill it with. But when Black Ops 2 came out, they introduced a different type of Create a Class that had no slots and instead had 10 points that you could spend on whatever you wanted for your class. So, for example, if you didn't care about having a secondary weapon in your loadout, you could not spend your point on that and spend it on an extra attachment for your primary weapon instead. Or if you didn't care about any attachments on your weapon, you could spend your extra points on adding more perks to your class. And of course, those are just a few examples, because the player has the freedom to spend their 10 points however they want. Now, on paper, this sounds like a great idea, and I know that a lot of COD players actually love it. But personally, I feel like the pick 10 system always ends up with everyone tricking out their primary weapon as much as possible and just not carrying a secondary or skipping out on some perks, which is really lame. I like making a choice for every slot in my custom loadout. With the pick 10 system, I always feel forced to give up my secondary or my equipment or my perks so that my primary weapon can compete with everyone else's. But anyway, this was introduced in BO2 and it was pretty popular in COD for years to come. The pick 10 system in Advanced Warfare also featured kill streaks as a part of the class, so again, you kinda ran into the same problem. Would you rather spend a point on a high kill streak that you probably won't even get during the match, or spend it on something that will for sure help you, like an extra gun or perk? This is especially a shame because the kill streaks in Advanced Warfare were awesome. You could actually customize them, and each one had a couple of variants to pick from. For example, the UAV had a variant that instead of just showing dots on the minimap, would give you wall hacks to see the enemy's exact position. This is especially useful in Advanced Warfare because of all the verticality and the speed at which everyone moves around. To round off your class, you can also add a piece of equipment and an EXO ability, which are kind of like field upgrades from modern Call of Duty. Some are kind of useless, but some are pretty cool, like this one that lets you momentarily hover so that you can hit some cool trick shots. So that kind of covers the basics of the Advanced Warfare gameplay and mechanics, but unfortunately, I can't finish this video without talking about Advanced Warfare's biggest crime against the Call of Duty community. The game was sold at a full $60 and featured 4 DLC packs that you could get for $15 a pop. Pretty standard for Call of Duty at the time. But on top of all that, they introduced randomized loot boxes that would give you not only cosmetic items, but weapon variants that actually changed the stats of the gun. And in some cases, these variants were objectively better than their base versions. Now, there's not really much to say here that hasn't already been said a million times. This creates an uneven playing ground where players who spend the most money have the biggest advantage. It also takes all of the integrity out of gameplay unlocks because most of the cool items you get, you'll unlock completely at random. I mean, imagine if you unlocked dark matter not by completing challenges, but by winning a game of roulette. It just wouldn't be the same. And unfortunately, Advanced Warfare set a trend that Call of Duty would follow for years to come, up until the Modern Warfare Renaissance in 2019, which I have a video for right here. But in short, this was one of the worst things to ever happen to Call of Duty, and it eventually almost destroyed the franchise entirely. But if you factor out the crappy monetization, Advanced Warfare is a good game, way better than people give it credit for. It offers a great variety of experiences, from a futuristic World War III story to survival modes to play with your friends, and a fast-paced, high-octane multiplayer that's unlike anything COD had ever seen at the time. Yes, the advanced movement turned the game into something that was almost unrecognizable from COD. And if you're a COD purist and you didn't enjoy this movement, I can understand that. Like we talked about, there are a lot of ways that it could have been improved. But personally, I think this game was a lot of fun and is definitely worth looking into for the future of COD. Not so that it can become a gameplay standard, but so that the franchise can use it to shake things up every once in a while. And I leave you with this. If you're interested in seeing Advanced Warfare 2 or maybe just another futuristic COD, then hit like on this video and leave a comment. This will likely never ever happen, but still, it'll be interesting to see if there's anyone else out there like me who would love to see Call of Duty take another crack at it, especially now that they've learned a big lesson from the other advanced movement games. But thank you all for watching, and everybody stay gold.